So, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reviewing the 2011 Cadillic CTS-V. Now, many of you that know me know that for the last 3-5 years, this has been one of my attainable dream cars. Finally got my hands on it, as you guys saw in my last video. Went to the auction, I found this one owner car. So today I'm going to do a little review on it. So let's start with the exterior. On the outside, the front of this Cadillac is one of my favorite front end designs of any car. It's a very bold, very macho looking car. It has very aggressive, very sharp lines. You know, the hood has a factory small cowl, and it's not too much. You know, a lot of times you see muscle cars, stuff like that, with a big cowl. I think it kind of looks hideous, but this is a very little kind of cowl right here, so it matches, you know, the aggressiveness of the front end. The front bumper is very nice and sharp, so it gives the front end of the car a very big, you know, very aggressive look up front. The wheels, you know, I'm a big wheel guy. The wheels on this thing are probably one of my favorite factory wheels available on cars. If I got, you know, if this was a personal car, there's 1 or 2 wheels that I might think about swapping them for, but if not, I would just leave the factory ones on the car. You know, maybe change the finish on them, but the design, I really like how it looks. Unfortunately, that's it for the exterior that I personally like. The rear of the car, in my opinion, is a bit plain, it's a bit boring. I think they could have made a better design. It just looks like a factory CTS. Nothing really distinguishes except for the V badge and the, you know, the exhaust. So I think it's a little lacking, it's a little too boring. I would have liked to see a little bit more aggressiveness. The rest of the car is just like a regular Cadillic CTS, you know, not a V. Nothing fancy, but nothing horrible. So with that said, let's take a look at the inside. So we hop inside this thing, and right away we're met with these Recaro seats. This is one of my favorite features on the car. I do love the styling of the seats. I think they're a great looking seat. They're a little bit firmer than most people would prefer. You know, I read a lot about reviews on this from a lot of owners, and one of the complaints with the Recaro seats is long distance driving. They're not the best seats for that, and I can understand why. They don't really have much give. It's a very firm seat. But with that said, I can't stand how the factory non-Recaro seats look. Even though they're more comfortable for styling purposes, I don't think they look that good. It's got this infotainment system on these cars where it's a bit finicky. You know, the screen pops up, and it just doesn't feel like the best quality stuff. The interior does have a, you know, your typical cheapish GM feel. Does have a nice steering wheel, nothing to complain about there, and I love the gauges. But overall, the interior really is nothing that you would expect for, I don't know what these cars were, 60,000, 65,000 new. So you'd kind of expect a little bit higher. And that honestly goes even for the brand new one, the 2017, 2018, 2019 CTS-V. The fully loaded one is $100,000, and when you sit inside it, you really don't feel like you're driving a car that's $100,000. Now, I understand most of that is because you're paying for the performance. This is not, you know, a luxury AMG car that's, you know, 120, 150, and it gives you a nice interior and the performance. This is more focused on, let's give you pure power and kind of give you a sedan version of a Corvette. One of my favorite features on this car is the panoramic sunroof. This thing is massive, and that honestly I love about my cars. If you guys know, with my MR2 I have T-tops, and if that car didn't have T-tops I would have never bought it, and it's similar with this. One of the features that I looked at for the options was the panel roof. The Recaro seats and the panel roof for me are a must. So we start this thing up, and as you can tell, it's pretty quiet. You know, my basis of comparison for this car are going to be cars like the ISF, the E55, E63, you know, those super sedans. And with all of those, the AMGs and even the ISF, you kind of get a nice burble when you start the car. It just gives you something, knowing that you have something under the hood. This one's a little bit more low-key. It's a very quiet car stock. It doesn't have the exhaust is actually very, very quiet. Most of the time when you accelerate, you hear the supercharger. So to me, it is a little bit lacking. I wish they would have made it sound a little bit, some kind of tone on startup. You know, right now it just sounds like a regular car. You don't think, oh, this car is a muscle car, you know, it's a rocket ship, whatever you want to call it. You don't think of it. You know, these Cadillacs, the CTS-Vs, they weigh about 4,200 to 4,300 pounds, so they're definitely not a small car. But the power, the LSA engine that they have that makes 56 horsepower, it makes it on demand. I mean, it is very linear. Whenever you need power at any speed, you have it. You know, as I'm driving this thing, the suspension is actually pretty nice. These have that magnetic ride suspension, and it is very often that I guess it goes bad. But when it works very, very well. I mean, I drive over some bumps, and you don't really feel them. You know, compared to the last car I drove that's similar to this, the ISF. The ISF has way stiffer suspension. I personally actually like that. You know, when I'm driving a performance car, I want to feel everything. I want to feel every problem with the road. I would say the suspension does need to stiffen up a little bit. I mean, after all, grandma's not buying a CTS-V, so this has the ZR1 based engine, the LSA. It is a ZR1 based engine. You know, it is very reliable, which unlike the LS7 and the Z06 and the LS9 that sometimes have valve drop issues, this thing does not have any issues. It is very reliable. People put 1,000 horsepower through these engines, and I mean, they take it. So the great thing about being supercharged is it's easy to make more power. So a 555 stock, you had a pulley, you had, you know, heat exchanger, stuff like that, and headers and full exhaust and maybe a cam if you want. It's not uncommon to see these almost at 700 wheel horsepower with basic mods. So as far as performance, this is a very easily moddable car, but it's also very quick stock that you don't need to do anything. And that's why this is one of my dream cars, because I'm starting to get out of, you know, modifying engines, building engines. If I want more power, I want to buy a stock car that makes more power. And if I want to tweak it a little bit, that's fine. But I want OEM reliability. And that's why this thing was one of the top candidates for my attainable dream cars. So as I said, I'm driving it. It is a very smooth car, surprisingly, because like I said, I had the ISF and it was definitely stiffer. You did feel stuff more. You felt bumps and all that. But it is also, it is pretty sharp as far as cornering goes. You know, if I point it, it does go somewhere. You do feel a little bit of the weight, just from being a car, from being a heavy car at 4,300 pounds. What I don't like about it with the weight on the suspension, the handling, it does feel a bit numb. You don't have that go-kart feel, and you wouldn't expect it to have that go-kart feel at the weight that it's at, but that is a little bit lacking for me. Let's do a little U-turn, accelerate. That's half throttle, and it went from 20 to 80 easily. I mean, that might have been less than half throttle. I really wasn't getting on it because there's traffic in front of me. But this thing takes off. I mean, as far as acceleration, if you like drag racing, if you like straight line speed, even if you like handling cars, this is a very good car. It's not the best handling car out there for sure. When you compare it to stuff like I said, the ISF, you compare it to a smaller sedan like an Evo, those are definitely, I don't know which one actually handles better, but the driver feel on those is definitely way higher than this. This thing does feel a bit numb, but you're gonna get that when you start going up in weight, and unfortunately most modern cars are going up in weight. But as far as power, there's 100 right there. And you guys saw there was a car that moved out of the way, and I was going about 30, and I have traction control on and everything on, and it still broke loose at 30 for a second before it, kicked traction on. So the power on these things is amazing. The torque is there. I can't say enough about that. The other day I was driving this and merging on the highway. You kind of give it half throttle and merge on the highway, and you're gonna get in trouble. I mean, I was going 120 by the end of the ramp, and I wasn't even trying. So the thing is definitely a wolf, as you call it, in sheep's clothing. If somebody doesn't know, they just look at the car. It's this Cadillic CTS, and this thing will take off. Besides the power, the one thing that really impressed me on this car are the brakes. You hit the brakes, and this thing really comes to a stop. The Brembos do a very nice job of stopping this car, which is not an easy task given its weight. Like I said earlier, one thing that I think would have made this car a little bit better from the factory is to give it a little bit louder exhaust. I mean, I'm not talking a lot because a lot of you guys know I'm not a big fan of LS engines, but it is a bit quiet. The nice thing is when you accelerate, you barely hear the exhaust, but you do hear the supercharger whine, and that is a nice sound. Overall, this is a fantastic car. The CTS-Vs, they're reaching their bottom pricing level. The first gens are sitting at 10 to 15,000 depending on the mileage. The second gen is about 20 on the lowest end for like 140,000 mile car, up to 40,000, up to 50, 60 if you have the wagons. And I don't think the sedans or the coupes are going to lose value too much. The wagons might, but they also might not because of the rarity. With that said, like I told you guys, this was one of my dream cars. And I've been hyping this car up in my head for a long time now. And that might be the problem, because I'm kind of disappointed. And the reason I say that is because a couple of months ago I had an ISF, and I drove that for a good month or so. I was slowly fixing small issues with it, and I drove it for a month. And for being an automatic like this one is, I actually liked the ISF. I felt connected. I felt like that car had some soul. With this car, I don't get that feeling. I don't know if it's because the suspension is too soft and too smooth for my liking. I do like to feel a little bit more of the road. I don't know if it's because this thing weighs, because excuse me, this car is 4,300 pounds. The ISF is closer to 38. And I thought I would like this car more because this car has power, more than the F does, more than a lot of cars do, and it's plenty of power for, an everyday daily driver, weekend toy, whatever you want to call it. But I'm disappointed. I just don't feel connected to this car. When I go home and I park this thing, I don't feel like I want to drive this thing again because I like to drive it. If I want to get an adrenaline rush from going fast or in a straight line type of deal, yeah, I would hop in this car. But I wouldn't sit there and want to take this thing out on Tail of the Dragon or something where, I want to actually drive. And that's why it's disappointing me. And I'm not a fan of automatics. Like I said, with the 8-speed in the ISF, it was fine. The 6-speed here, it shifts fine. It's quick with the paddles and all that. But it just doesn't connect me. It might be different with the 6-speed manual one, which is why I think I'm going to try to look for a 6-speed manual just so I could give it a fair shot to see if I actually like the car. I don't think it's the trans that's really making me not like it as much as I thought I would. I think it's overall the, like I said, how connected I am to the road. It's just not, it's not there for me. But it's a fantastic car. It's just, I guess it's just not for me. And a lot of people that own these, you know, I talked to them before I bought this one, and they said, you love the car, they're amazing. And I agree with them, but I don't agree about me loving it. It just doesn't do it for me. I'm driving this, and I'm driving a regular car. I don't feel like I'm in a V-based performance car, except when I step on the throttle. So, with that said, it's a little bit of a disappointment for me. But if you guys are considering one, test drive it, check it out. Most people, I think, will like this car. I'm just not that connected to it. It doesn't have soul. You know, there's cars that are slow, Miatas, Integra Type Rs, NSXs, like I said, even the ISF with power, even Corvettes, you know, the Grand Sport Corvette I had, the Z06, those cars in my mind, they have soul. This thing, I don't get that feel. So, thank you guys for watching. That's my review on this Cadillac. I'm going to do a couple more reviews soon. It might be a bit because I have to drive to Chicago. So that's going to take up some of my schedule, and I got a bunch of cars I got to start fixing. But again, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Give me your thoughts on this car. If you guys own one, or if you guys considering getting one, please let me know.